I never thought I'd find myself in this mess, honestly. When I look back, there were subtle signs, tiny cracks that I ignored because I wanted to believe in the good of us, of my wife, of the life I thought we had. We'd been married for 3 years and everything seemed smooth, predictable. We had plans, a future we talked about endlessly. I trusted her more than I've trusted anyone, or so I thought. It all unraveled in the blink of an eye at our wedding rehearsal dinner of all places. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, of laughs and nervous jitters for the big day. The hotel was fancy, the kind with the soft glow of dimmed lights and the faint scent of jasmine lingering in the air. I remember the taste of the steak I had, the way the wine made my head feel a little light, my heart full of hope. I was sitting with my best man, Jake, my best friend, my brother in all but blood. We were joking about how nervous I was, already imagining the next day. Then I saw her, my wife, Emily, walking into the hotel room with Jake. Just the two of them. My stomach clenched hard. I remember the way my gut twisted, a sick feeling crawling up my throat. I froze as I watched her slip into the room, her hand on his arm. The sound of their footsteps, muffled by the door, echoed in my ears. I didn't want to believe it, not really. Maybe it was a mistake, maybe I was seeing things, but something inside me knew better. My heart started pounding like a drum in my chest, so loud I thought the whole hotel could hear it. I got up, my palms slick with sweat. I kept my eyes fixed on that door, unsure whether I was about to burst in or crawl away. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who caused a scene. But then I saw it. A flash of something, her hand on his collar, their bodies pressed close. I saw the way her face was turned away, lost in a moment she thought was hidden from the world. I saw the way Jake's eyes flicked nervously, like he knew I was watching but didn't care. That was the moment everything shattered inside me, piece by piece. I remember standing there, frozen, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? How many nights had I come home to her, thinking everything was fine, when she was out sneaking into hotel rooms with my best man? The room door swung open slightly, and I could hear muffled laughter, a noise that made my blood boil. I wanted to storm in and tear them apart, but I stayed rooted. My fists clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, anything, but I just watched. Watched that door close softly behind her, her figure vanishing into the hallway, her betrayal etched into my mind like a scar. It took everything I had to keep from running after her, to confront her right then and there. But I knew asterisk, that this wasn't going to be something I could just forget. The evidence was staring right at me. The lipstick on her collar, the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the hallway, the way her heels clicked a little too loudly as she hurried away like she was trying to disappear. It was so clear, so undeniable. That night I hardly slept. Thoughts kept rushing through my head, what this meant, what I should do. I felt sick, like my stomach was tied in knots. My hands kept trembling as I held the evidence, the hotel keycard I found in her purse, the torn slip of fabric from her dress that I found stuffed in her bag. I never thought I'd be in a situation like this, where I'd have to dig through her things just to find proof. But I had to be sure. I had to know what kind of betrayal I'd been blind to. I remember sitting in the dark, clutching those items, feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak swirl inside me. My mind replayed the moment I saw her enter that room, her face so innocent, so unaware that I was watching. That image burned in my brain. I wanted to confront her right then, to scream and demand answers, but I knew better. I needed a plan, something cold and calculated. This wasn't just about ending the marriage. This was about making her pay for tearing apart everything I believed in. I knew I wouldn't let her get away with it, not without a price. The next day I started plotting, methods, timing, how I'd catch her in the act again if I had to. I had to be smart, precise. She thought she was clever. She'd been sneaking around, hiding her lies, assuming I'd never find out. But she was wrong. The game was on now, and I was determined to win. I had no illusions about what revenge would look like. It wouldn't be messy or loud. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, to see her own betrayal reflected back at her. I had to make her understand that I was no fool, that I saw everything, even the things she thought she hid so well. So I kept the evidence close, made sure my mind was sharp. I had my plan, and I knew that come the next day, I'd be ready to face her, not as the naive husband she thought I was, but as someone who'd been wronged and was about to make her regret every lie she'd told. The morning after the revelation was the worst. I woke up feeling like I'd swallowed rocks, my stomach still twisted from the night before. I kept replaying that moment, the way her face looked when she thought she was alone, the way Jake had looked at her like she was the prize. I'd never seen betrayal so blatant, so cruel. It was as if my entire world had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching the evidence I'd gathered, the torn fabric from her dress, the hotel keycard, the lipstick stain I'd found on her collar. My fingers trembled as I held them, trying to piece everything together. How long had this been going on? Were there others? Did she ever really love me? The question spun in my mind, relentless. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I couldn't do it right away. I needed to be strategic. I needed to make her pay, not just for the infidelity, but for the way she'd shattered my trust. First, I needed to know if she was planning to keep this affair going. If so, I had to catch her off guard, make her believe she was still safe. That meant gathering more proof, keeping her under my radar. I decided to follow her that morning. She said she was going out shopping, but I knew better. I slipped out of the house before she did, tailing her through the city streets. She was a nervous wreck, rushing into stores, glancing over her shoulder. I saw her meet someone, another man, at a cafe. My stomach clenched again, but I kept my distance. I needed more proof, not just assumptions. By late afternoon, I had enough. The pieces fell into place. I knew she was meeting him again, probably more than once. That was when I really started to plan my revenge. Not just a confrontation, but something calculated, something that would make her regret ever crossing me. I wasn't about to let her walk away without feeling the consequences of her betrayal. I spent the evening in my home office, poring over plans, reading about revenge tactics, how to make her see what she'd lost. No violence, I told myself. Just enough to make her understand that I was serious, that I'd catch her in her lies. I also thought about how to do it without revealing my hand too soon, to keep her guessing. That night, I set up a little trap. I rigged a hidden camera I'd bought online. Not to spy on her all the time, but enough to catch her in the act again. I placed it discreetly in the living room, angled towards the window where she usually met her lovers. I wanted her to think she was still sneaking around, but I'd be watching. I didn't want any surprises. I also made sure she had no idea I was onto her. I played the part of the naive husband, pretending everything was normal. She even tried to act normal, which was almost more infuriating than if she'd been open about it. I could see the guilt lurking behind her eyes, the nervous glances she cast around the room. My fists clenched again. She believed she was clever, but I knew she was weak. The night was long. I sat in the dark, eyes fixed on the tiny screen of my phone, waiting for her to make her move. My mind kept racing, what I'd say, how I'd make her regret this. I didn't want her to think she could just cheat and walk away, not without consequences. Around midnight, I saw her slip out of bed, tiptoeing into the living room. The camera caught every move. She was dressed in her usual tight clothes, trying to be discreet. I watched her meet a man outside the window, her lips pressed against his, her hands running down his chest. I felt a surge of rage mixed with a strange sense of clarity. This was happening, and I was going to make sure she paid. As they parted ways, she looked around to see if she was being watched. I could see her face, a mix of defiance and trembling fear. She thought she was untouchable, that her lies were safe behind the facade of her act. But I had everything I needed now. It was time to move to the next phase, confrontation. I shut off the camera and sat back, feeling the weight of what was coming. I knew she'd try to deny everything, but I was ready. I had all the proof, all the evidence. She couldn't deny the truth. I could feel my jaw tight. This was the beginning of my revenge, and I was going to make damn sure she knew exactly what she'd lost. Tomorrow I thought I'd tell her I knew, and that was just the start. I'd waited long enough. Now, she was about to face the consequences of her betrayal. The next morning, I woke up feeling different, more focused, more determined. The adrenaline from last night's surveillance still buzzed in my veins. I'd watched her sneaking out, meeting him, and I knew I couldn't keep this quiet any longer. If I was going to do this, it had to be all in. I had the proof, the footage, the torn fabric, the lipstick stain, and I was ready to use it. I poured myself a cup of coffee, black and bitter, and sat staring at the screen where I'd watched her last night. The images were burned into my mind, her lips pressed against that guy, her hands clutching his shirt like she was trying to etch their secret into the universe. I felt a sickness clawing at my stomach, but I pushed it aside. There was no room for weakness anymore. I dialed her phone. Her voice was cheerful, innocent. "Hey, honey, what's up?" "Just wanted to check in," I said, voice steady but cold. "Are you free for a talk when you get back?" There was a pause, a hesitation she didn't bother hiding. "Yeah, sure, everything okay?" "Fine," I replied, "but I need to see you when you're home." She sounded nervous now, a little too quick to agree. "Okay, I'll be home by dinner." Good, I needed her to be comfortable, to think she was in control. That made the moment even sweeter. When she arrived, I met her in the hallway, arms crossed, staring her down like she was a stranger. "Hi," she said, trying to smile, but her voice wavered. "Hi," I echoed. "We need to talk." Her face fell just a little. "What's wrong?" "I know," I said softly but firmly. "I know about last night, about the meetings, the sneaking around, the hotel room, Jake, everything." Her eyes widened, the color draining from her face. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play innocent," I snapped. "I saw the footage. I found your dress torn, the lipstick on your collar. You didn't think I'd find out, did you?" She looked like she wanted to deny it, but her lips trembled. "It's not what you think, it's complicated." "Yeah, I bet," I said, voice rising. "You think you can just cheat on me and walk away like nothing happened?" She looked ready to cry, but I wasn't done. "You lied to me every day. You betrayed everything we built. Well, I've got news for you. You're not walking out of this like you're the victim." Her eyes glistened with tears. "Please, I didn't mean for it to happen. It was just a mistake." "Save it," I spat. "You're a liar, Emily, and I'm done being naive." I turned and walked into the living room, grabbing the evidence I'd kept hidden. I placed everything on the table, her torn dress, the keycard, the footage on my laptop. I looked straight at her, feeling a strange mixture of rage and relief. "You're leaving," I said flatly. "Tonight, you can pack your things and get out. I want nothing more to do with you." She looked at the evidence, her face crumbling. "Please," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I love you. I swear it's just a stupid mistake." "Love," I cut her off. "You think cheating on me is love? That's not love, that's betrayal. And I'm done trusting you." Sank onto the couch, her hands trembling. "I never meant for you to find out like this. I thought I could fix it before you saw. I was so stupid." "Yeah," I said, voice cold. "You were stupid, and now you're going to leave. Don't come back." As she packed her bag, I handed her the keys she'd left in her purse. She looked at me, eyes pleading. "Can we at least talk about this?" "No," I said sharply. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. I made mine." She looked hurt, defeated. "You're going to regret this," she whispered. "You're going to regret throwing me away." I didn't bother to answer. I just watched her walk out that door, her heels clicking on the hardwood. When she was gone, I felt a strange sense of emptiness, but also a strange clarity. This was the end of the line. She'd betrayed me beyond repair, and I wasn't going to be another fool who took her back. I sat alone in the silence, the weight of everything pressing down. But deep inside, I knew one thing: I'd never trust her again. Not after what she did. Not after the lies, the sneaking, the betrayal. I'd rebuild from this, stronger, and I'd make sure she understood exactly what she'd lost. And that was the moment I realized. Sometimes the only way to reclaim yourself is to cut the toxic roots out completely. The days that followed were the strangest I've ever known. The house felt empty without her. No more footsteps, no more whispered secrets, no more that sickening feeling of betrayal. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the ache in my chest. But every so often I'd catch myself staring at the door, waiting for her to come back to say she was sorry. Of course, that never happened. It was around a week after she left that I realized I needed to do more. Not just to hurt her, but to make her see that I was serious, serious enough to truly end it, to make her regret what she'd thrown away. I started planning my revenge. Not in a petty way, but in a calculated, deliberate way that would leave a mark, something she'd remember long after she moved on. First, I needed her to understand that I knew everything, That meant she had to see the evidence again, every little detail, every betrayal. I decided I'd send her a message, something that would make her realize I wasn't bluffing. I found her email and sent her a simple, cold note. I know what you did. The truth is out. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to face what's coming. I attached the video footage, the torn fabric, the keycard. No words, just that silent, damning evidence. I knew she'd see it. I also knew she'd panic, and that's exactly what I wanted. Next, I started working on my plan to make her feel what I was feeling: humiliation, regret, a deep sense of loss. But I had to be clever. I wasn't about to parade around trashing her reputation. That would be too obvious. Instead, I decided to play the long game. I spent the next couple of days planting small clues, subtle hints that I was watching her, that I knew her secrets. I changed my social media status to single and made sure some of her friends saw it. I also reached out to an old friend, someone I knew she was still close to, and subtly hinted that I had evidence of her affair. I didn't say too much, just enough to make her feel exposed. Meanwhile, I kept the footage on a thumb drive, hidden away just in case I needed it later. I wanted her to feel the mounting pressure, the sense that she was losing control. That's when I decided to give her a taste of what's coming. One evening, I sent her a message. I know everything. I've got proof, and I'm not going to let this slide. You better think long and hard about what you're going to do next. I included a recent photo of her, taken secretly at the cafe, her face flushed, her eyes darting around like she was hiding something. I could almost hear her panic through the screen. Good, that's how it should be. I wasn't just hurting her. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, and scared. That's what revenge is supposed to do. I still remember the moment I saw her try to call me, her name blinking on my screen. I ignored it. She left a message, pleading, desperate. I didn't listen. I knew her game, and I wasn't falling for it. I wanted her to understand that I was in control now, that she had lost her footing, and that the only way to fix this was to face the reality she'd created. By then, she was reaching out more frequently, trying to convince me it was all a mistake, that she loved me, that things could go back to how they were. I didn't bother to reply. I knew better. She was just trying to save herself, to cling to the hope that she could undo what she'd done. But I had no interest in saving her. I wanted her to realize she couldn't undo this, that her lies had caught up with her and she had no choice but to face the fallout. I was patient, waiting for the right moment to strike. I was building a storm, and she was completely unaware of it. I remember sitting in my apartment, feeling the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me. But underneath it all, there was a strange clarity, an understanding that sometimes the only way to move forward is to take control, to make her see that what she threw away wasn't just a marriage. It was her integrity, her respect, her sense of decency. And I was about to remind her of that. The next step in my plan was coming. I'd made her paranoid, exposed, and vulnerable, all without lifting a finger I'd regret. It was a slow burn, and I knew she'd crack soon enough. Because when a person's lies are exposed, there's nowhere left to run. The anticipation was worse than the betrayal itself. Every night I'd sit in the dark, staring at my phone, waiting for her to slip up again. I'd catch glimpses of her through my hidden camera, her face tense, eyes darting around, trying to stay one step ahead. She was panicking, and honestly, I reveled in it. Seeing her unravel, knowing I held her secret, that felt like justice. I kept the pressure on, sending her little reminders of my surveillance. A simple message. Did you forget I'm watching? With a screenshot of her outside the cafe, her face blurred but unmistakably hers. Or you're not as clever as you think, paired with a picture I'd taken on my phone, her entering her apartment, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Each message made her sweat a little more, made her feel cornered. One evening, I decided it was time to escalate. I wanted her to know I wasn't just sitting back waiting, I was actively controlling this game. So I devised a plan. I'd orchestrate a meeting, one that she'd believe was her chance to finally come clean, to confess everything. But really, it was a trap. I sent her a message late that night. Let's talk. I want to hear it from you. Come to the hotel downtown around 8. No games, no lies. I knew she'd think I was giving her a chance, that I wanted closure. But really, I just wanted to see her face when she realized I was waiting for her. Sure enough, she responded quickly, trying to sound calm but shaky. Okay, I'll be there. I just want to talk. When she arrived at the hotel, I was already in the room, hiding just out of sight. I'd set everything up, turned off the lights, left the door slightly open, my phone recording. I wanted her vulnerable, caught in her own web of lies. She hesitated at the door, then stepped inside. Her eyes darted around, searching for me. The moment she saw my face, her breath hitched. She looked like a trapped animal, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction. She started to speak, but I cut her off. Did you really think you could keep this secret forever? I asked, voice low and cold. I saw everything, Emily, every sneaky meeting, every lie. You thought you'd get away with it. She looked down, tears forming but stubbornly staying in her eyes. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was stupid. I didn't want to hurt you. Stupid isn't the word I'd use, I said, voice rising just enough. You betrayed me in the worst way. You lied, you cheated, you used me like I was nothing. Her shoulders shook with sobs. Please, I love you, I swear I do. I was weak, I made a mistake. You don't get to say you love me after what you've done, I interrupted, voice sharp. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. I pulled out the thumb drive, showing her the footage. This is what you've been hiding. I have enough evidence to destroy you if I wanted, but I want you to understand, this is just about revenge. It's about you finally seeing what your lies cost. She looked at the drive, her face pale. Please don't do this. I'll do anything, just don't ruin me. I shook my head slowly. It's too late for that. You already did, and I want you to remember this moment forever because it's the last night you're going to get away with it. She sank onto the bed, tears streaming freely now. I was so stupid, she repeated. I didn't mean for it to go this far. No, I said softly. You just didn't care enough. That's the real problem. I left her there, trembling and broken, feeling the weight of her betrayal settle deep inside me. I knew I'd made the right move. She'd betrayed me, lied to my face, and now she was paying the price. As I walked out of the hotel, I felt a strange calm. This was the end of our story. I'd done everything I set out to do, exposed her, made her realize she couldn't hide forever. And from now on, I was done. Done with the lies, done with the betrayal. It was time to move. The house seemed colder when I got home. I sat in my chair, staring at the keys she'd left on the table. I picked them up, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. I grabbed a folder, printed the divorce papers I'd prepared earlier, and signed them with a steady hand. I knew what I had to do next. I slipped the papers into an envelope, sealed it, and added the keys. Then I put it in the mailbox. No words, no drama, just a clear, decisive act. I knew that this was the end. No more lies, no more betrayal. Just the cold truth that I was finally free. And as I watched the mailbox close with a soft click, I thought to myself, sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away. The days after I mailed the divorce papers were surprisingly quiet. No frantic calls, no desperate messages. Just the steady hum of a life that was finally starting to feel like mine again. I thought I'd feel relief, or maybe even satisfaction, but honestly it was more about closure. I'd spent so long in a fog of betrayal, and now I could finally see clearly. I'd taken the keys she left behind and tossed them into the drawer of my bedside table. Each time I looked at them, I remembered the moment I realized everything was a lie. The weight of her betrayal still lingered, but it had started to dull, a dull ache that would fade with time. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and saw a version of myself I barely recognized. More bitter, yes, but also stronger. I spent a few days just existing, avoiding anything that reminded me of her. I didn't need to hear her voice or see her face anymore. I'd done what I set out to do, expose her, make her feel the loss of what she took for granted, and then walk away. No drama, no revenge turned to chaos, just a clean break. One afternoon, I sat on my porch sipping coffee, the sun warm on my face. The wind carried a faint scent of jasmine, something I'd associated with her, but now it felt distant, like a ghost. I thought about all the wasted time, all the wasted trust. But I also knew I wouldn't stay bitter forever. I had learned something valuable. Trust isn't given, it's earned. And I'd learned the hard way to be more cautious. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I hesitated, then pulled it out. It was an email from my lawyer, an update on the divorce, final papers ready to be signed, a clean break confirmed. I read it, feeling a strange sense of peace. It was over. I knew there'd be moments of weakness, times when the memory of her betrayal would creep back in. But I was determined not to let it define me. I was going to rebuild slowly but surely. Trusting again maybe, but differently this time. Smarter. As I closed my eyes, I let out a long breath. I had taken back control and I had done it on my terms. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I hadn't let her destroy me. Instead, I'd turned the pain into a lesson about honesty, about boundaries, about knowing when to walk away. And in that quiet moment, I knew one thing for sure. I was finally free. Free from the lies, the betrayal, the false promises. Free to start over, to find someone who deserved my trust, someone who wouldn't take it for granted. I pushed myself up from the chair, feeling the strength in my legs. The sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue over everything. It was a new day, a new chapter, and I was ready to face it. Sometimes the biggest revenge is simply walking away and reclaiming your life.